Wow.
This is a lot louder.
No,
Sorry. We called I'm so sorry, the April 28th meeting, 27th meeting of the Mexico City Council to order.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hey, we have the approval of the minutes from April 13th.
Make a motion?
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, on to our business resolutions. Bill number 2020-20, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Presser Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to citizens. Reading by title only and passage. Mr. Slagle?
Yes, Your Honor, this is the annual agreement with Presser. We'll cover the details. Turn to Chad Shoemaker.
Good evening, Council. The attached resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an agreement with Presser Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to citizens. The 2019-20 budget allows for the City of Mexico to contribute to the Presser Performing Arts Center the sum of $10,000 for the use in providing programs and activities to citizens. The city has provided this level of assistance to PPAC since 2002. Staff recommends that the City of Mexico and the Presser Performing Arts Center enter into an agreement and that the council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Pleasure of the council.
I move we enter, let's see, is this a reading? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I move for first reading of bill number 2020-20.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes. Bill number 2020-20, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Presser Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to citizens. I move for passage of
Second.
bill number 2020-20.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Bill number 2021, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Mark Corman LLC Properties. Mr. Slagle?
Yes, Your Honor, this is an agreement for future voluntary annexation of property owned by Mr. Corman, and that is to allow him to come into the city within 3 years, but at the meantime would agree that he could move forward with attaching to the sanitary sewer. To cover the details of the agreement, I will turn to Russell Runge, and then I'll have some additional comments in this.
Okay, the attached resolution does authorize the city manager to enter this voluntary annexation agreement with Mark Corman LLC Properties. Staff was contacted by Mark Corman, the owner, requesting a voluntary annexation of his property. The agreement allows Mark Corman LLC Properties to construct a sanitary sewer system, lift station, force main, and necessary connections to our sewer system. The agreement allows property currently owned by Mr. Corman LLC Properties to be annexed into the city limits in exchange for being allowed to connect to the city's sanitary sewer. Mark Corman LLC Properties will provide proper easements for access, maintenance, operations of the sewer line in the city. Upon inspection, approval would accept to operate and maintain the lift station and force main after annexation. The cost of the construction of the sewer line would be at the expense of Mr. Corman. Mark Corman Properties would have access to the city's sewer line with a rate that is provided to outside the city limits for a period of not more than 3 years. The agreement provides that the annexation would occur at the end of the 3-year period, if not sooner. Staff recommends council proceed with reading by title only and passes of the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a voluntary annexation agreement with Mark Corman LLC Properties. As you can see, it's a pretty large area, just right at the edge of town. It does touch the city limits, so therefore it can be annexed. There's 2 properties, one of which is this manufacturing space. and where he has potential to grow. The other is what had been a trailer court. There's still 3 individuals still in there. The plan is, what we have been told, is that those individuals will be gone by the time he annexed in. The lagoon for that is not included in that, in the annexation either. It's the piece that's in the yellow lines. It's just to the south of the purple lines. Council have any questions?
So, I do. So he has the trailer, well, not trailer parking, but there's 3 trailers. So I'm assuming that we are just hooking, and he says they're going to be gone. So I'm assuming we're just running.
They will
line
not.
to
They will
his
continue
business.
to use the lagoon until it's gone.
That was my question. We're just hooking up to his business.
Correct.
Okay.
And one other thing, council, you do have in front of you, which is an amended resolution. And it is basically for clarification more than anything. And you'll see the one that's highlighted in yellow. And it adds accepting track 3 on the said deed, which is that lagoon, which is referenced basically at this point right here. One of the other issues was the trailer homes, and so Councilman Miller asked about adding, which is we can do under an amendment, which would be in that same area, and the removal of the mobile homes in that tract prior to annexation. So the one is already included in this one, but we would want to add that as an amendment if you so chose to do that.
So if we take the lagoon in,
If this is not taking the lagoon at all.
I thought that's what
It's
you
not,
No.
it's not taking the lagoon at all.
The annexation agreement exempts, has the track 3 where the lagoon is removed from it, so when he
all right.
signs
I had it
that, it's ready to go.
backwards.
However, the legal description that we have here does include
Does
that.
include the-
So that's why we're needing to do that amendment to repair that.
My amendment, Chris, is based on the fact that it doesn't say, he wants them gone, but it doesn't say they have to be gone before you annex in. I want to annex in. I want to approve annexing in trailers. So do I amend it now?
We'd need a motion to put it on the floor first, if you would, and then offer your amendment. And then we'd have to vote on the amendment first, and then back to the original.
I move for reading of Bill 2020-21.
amended, right?
And now
We have to
No,
do.
we gotta-
we have the motion second, we need to vote on that.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols.
So we vote yes on this? Yes.
We're just voting on the first reading of the resolution that is presented to you now.
And then we change it.
So then
And
you-
Then we change it. Okay.
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
I move we amend Bill 2020-21 to add to the second paragraph where it says at the end, "and accepting track 3 on said deed 2011 DRO 2525 and the removal of mobile homes in tract."
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Now I move for passage of Bill 2020.
Let's go back and read it, and then
Yeah, you have to read it. You never read
I
it.
got to read it, okay. This whole thing? No, just the title.
just the
Okay.
title, as amended.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a voluntary annexation agreement with Mark Corman LLC Properties as amended.
Second.
Move for approval.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Now I move for passage of Bill 2021 as amended.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hey, moving on to other business, a staff report, purchase of playground equipment for Plunkett Park. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor, this was part of the annual budget, and we have now bid and have prices and design. So we will turn to Chad Shoemaker to cover the resolution or the staff report regarding what we're proposing.
Thank you, Bruce. The 2019-20 annual budget allows $190,000 for the purchase of replacement playground equipment at Plunkett Park for the Parks and Recreation Department. The budget includes a $100,000 grant from the Audrain County Developmental Disability Board for rubber tile surfacing of the playground. Request for competitive proposals to provide and install $80,000 of playground equipment and to provide and install up to $100,000 rubber tile fall surfacing were sent to 12 vendors, and advertisements were placed in the Mexico Ledger. 10 proposals within the budget guidelines were received from 7 vendors. Proposals were reviewed and assessed by a committee composed of park board members, park staff, and members of the Audrain County Developmental Disability Board. Individual committee members awarded proposal points remotely, and staff tabulated the points. The top 4 proposals were then reviewed, and during a virtual meeting with the committee members, the unanimous best proposal choice was option B from Hutchinson Recreation and Design. Drawings of the proposed playground equipment are included. The discrepancy that you see between the $100,000, the $80,000, and the $190,000 revolves around a possible fencing project that would also be funded by the Audrain County Developmental Disability Board. But we deemed that the costs that came in for vendors on that were too high, and so Mr. Cruz from the executive director over there and I agreed that we were going to X that out, and we'll do that together separately from this project, but it'll still get done. Staff recommends that council proceed with approval and purchase and installation of Miracle Recreation Equipment Company replacement playground equipment and fall surface material from Hutchinson Recreation and Design of Lake St. Louis, Missouri for the bid price of $180,000, subject to the bidder's ability to deliver and install the equipment in the acceptable length of time. This equipment is made in Missouri. It's one of the things that led everybody to kind of follow this direction partly is that we think there's a much better chance of it actually getting manufactured in here on time compared to some of the other brands.
When you talked about the soft flooring,
Yes.
is the equipment also ADA compliant then as well?
Yeah, this is actual universal playground equipment. Like you'll notice the little round feature that has got the wheelchair in it. Everything but that tower in the center is designed to be accessible and usable by a child or a caregiver without any extra help.
Excellent.
So it's one of the reasons that you're not seeing as much equipment as maybe you'd normally see from us, because like the glider rocker on the left-hand side of the drawing is it's a very expensive piece, and so is the inset spinner. That was the whole point of doing this grant-wise with this particular organization, was that we don't have this kind of equipment currently.
That's one thing I've heard people say is that they'd like to see something like this, so I'm glad it's happening.
We've been working on it for a pretty long period of time, probably about 3 or 4 years to bring this to this point.
So where are you putting that equipment? Is it up by the...
It'll be where the current playground is at Plunkett.
Is it replacing it or?
It'll replace it, correct.
Okay.
And we
Probably
do...
says that, I just didn't...
Well, and we have room on that site that Tim and I have talked to. So we may add some more equipment to this site over time and do additional projects with them at this site. So it's a big enough area that we can continue to do that. Yep.
That's nice. Council, it's your pleasure.
I make a motion that we purchase the equipment.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Sugar,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Appointment for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Sharon. Currently, there is one vacant position on the board that is an unexpired term that would expire in June of 2021. Mike Beardsley has expressed interest in serving on the board. We have not received any other applications or interest, so we'd recommend proceeding with the appointment for the unexpired term that would end in July of 2021.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Sugars,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Next order of business discussion. Department of Public Safety First Responder COVID-19 is requested by Chairman Pro Tem Chris Williams. some slate.
Yes, I didn't know if the chief wanted to say anything or talk about the policy before I got going. If not, I'll just go. Okay.
We can respond to any questions.
So, first of all, good evening. And since I'm the council member that put this on the agenda, I have several questions, obviously, and concerns about the policy relating to the medical calls in relation to COVID-19. But before I start, I know we all got a letter. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to say anything before I got going, or just let me go.
We got a letter.
An
Yeah,
email.
that was a while back.
Okay, so the first thing I guess I'll just go is, what was the criteria involved in making this decision?
You want to go through each one individually, is what you would like then, or?
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be easier, is just ask questions and respond to.
Okay. I can, Susan, why don't I try to, Chief, why don't I try to respond in general to start with, and then if there's more specific. I think, first of all, and maybe this is a little more background than what you're asking for at this point, but understand that the city, through public safety, has historically responded on ambulance assist calls for a number of years, a long time. And that would involve all kinds of those calls, whether they be life-threatening, non-life-threatening, and basically assist when we could. Now, as considered as a first responder, understand our relationship first is the city is police and fire. The Audrain Ambulance District is the medical first responder, EMTs, medical calls. Now, and again, like I said, for years we've been responding on those calls. Now, as part of, as we said very early on in the COVID-19 issues, that we would be making changes based on public health and safety and base those decisions on facts and what we would be doing. Now, understand there are a number of calls that are what we consider fully emergency, life-threatening calls, and then there are non-emergency, non-life-threatening, and so on. So one of the things that we looked at very early on was a part of this was how we limit our exposure through COVID-19, not only to residents, to those individuals responding, whether it be ambulance personnel as well as public safety. And so one of the first things that we did, where we've gotten now, and the level that we're at now, is that we're only responding to the life-threatening emergency calls, all of the non-life-threatening, non-emergency calls, for the most part, unless we're requested by the ambulance to be there. We are basically waving off on those calls, I think, is maybe the best way to term that. And that is where we've come at. Why did we come to those issues was really because of COVID-19, but as part of looking at, again, developing the level of facts that we were trying to go to and why we would respond, is we also looked at it from a public health point of view, and we did discuss this with public health up front about what we should be addressing as we address the COVID issue. And they basically certainly agreed that we should not be doing additional exposure to patients, for one, entering their homes and so on, as well as potentially risk and exposure to the responding personnel. In addition to that, of course, our work comp carrier has been after us for a long time in regards to that we should not be doing a number of the things that we were doing simply because of basic life-saving skills that our folks have versus what the first responders are doing. And that we should let them, in essence, handle most of those calls. The other thing is that it really was falling exactly in line with what other agencies are doing as far as standard practice, as far as response as well. So that's where we came to those decisions.
Well, per the letter we got, we had the original plan, and then within 48 hours, we further decreased the level of service. So what happened in that 48 hours that we decided that we just we're going to be even stricter? Because we had the original policy, and I believe that's probably when I talked to you, because when I talked to you, the policy was kind of what you said, but then it changed, and it said so in the letter that it changed to be worse.
And it was basically the increasing stage of the virus in itself during that period of time. One of the first things that we were doing was basically letting, if you will, the shift commander, if you will, make some of those decisions as far as what ones to call off of. Then it became very clear from the information that we got reference COVID, which was basically do not respond to any of the non-life-threatening, only life-threatening calls. And as we know, the virus and the issues, surrounding it and how the steps progressed moved very quickly there through that period of time.
So I guess this next question addresses kind of why we're here is, why was a policy that has the ability to affect every single person in the community, every person in this room? It may not directly affect, but it could. Why was it not discussed with the council, or at least told to the council that this was happening? I get that. I don't care about if a sewer main breaks. I mean, I care, but this is something that has the ability to affect every single person depending on their situation. And I just don't understand why it wasn't thought out, why it wasn't told to us. I mean, we had a month. I mean, not to me, but to me.
The decisions we made is when we went into emergency operations. The emergency operations, if you will, gives a lot of authority to make decisions based on what's important to responding to the emergency. And those decisions were made based on response to that emergency. As far as this was, to me, was an operations issue. Very clearly to me, we do not come to council to decide how we're going to respond to a traffic accident or to stopping another vehicle or response to a burglary or a shooter in progress. This is an operations issue. And that's where I really fairly thought it was clearly at.
Okay. Well, saying that, after, I guess another question is, after it was brought to your attention and we changed the policy, why didn't we get back and say, hey, this is what's going on?
I believe that I did send to every council member clearly as far as the city's plan in regards to how we were responding to the emergency. So, not to say there wasn't communication, I don't understand that.
I never received, until we got this email this week, never received anything about this.
You and I personally discussed this probably about 3 weeks ago as well.
Right.
And what our decisions were.
Right, and the policy changed. That's why I'm like, it would seem to me if you change the policy, because when we talked about the policy, it was basically like you said, we're going to call off assists. And I may not agree or disagree or what have you, but that was one policy, and that policy has gotten stricter. Even in your letter, it says we made a change and made it stricter. So, I mean, communication,
But
kind of a thing.
I think, and maybe this might help, I think the way that I was seeing when we were getting the information about the COVID-19 and the levels of operation, when we were told that, okay, they were, we were doing level 1, level 2, level 3. And I think what we're saying kind of happened is, I'm understanding this correctly, or the way I perceived it when I got the letter about what was going on, is because of the increased levels that we were operating from, we had to get stricter in the way that they were doing it. And so this was, when we got that letter, was saying we moved to this level of operation. We're on the level 3. As a result, we can't send our officers out to non-threatening. And so I just saw it as part of what we had already been discussing over the months since we've been really working with COVID-19 and the policies thereof.
Well, I'm not sure what was communicated there. I never received a letter. I went through my emails. We got the weekly ones, but there was never a direct, we're doing this with public safety. I never got that email. I mean, if other people did, then obviously we got across somewhere. Here or there. But, so the next question, does the city have the appropriate equipment to respond per CDC rules? And do they know how to use it
As far as
to respond to medical
PPE
calls?
equipment, personal protective equipment. The personal protective equipment, I believe, as a whole, I think we are adequate to meet today's response, depending on how it may grow. I think everyone, as far as discussions that we've had, and understand, I'm on daily meetings through the Emergency Operations Center, which is through emergency management, and we have public health, the ambulance association, the hospital, the sheriff's office, joint communication, and this is countywide that we have these meetings. And I think it's very clear from those meetings that we probably have enough for an initial response, but I think it's very clear that depending on how big the response is, we'll run out of equipment fairly quickly. So, and we've looked at number of sources to try to find additional PPE equipment, which has been very difficult to find and very hard. We have had some very limited distribution of equipment through the State Emergency Management Agency, which kind of comes from federal level. But to say that there's much of a stockpile, I don't think that would be a fair statement. I'd say I think we can handle initial response, but without resupply, which I'm not even sure where you get it from right now. If there was a real critical mass, I don't know that we would have enough equipment.
Are you allowed to make comments on the equipment you get, and then you find it's defective because it came from China? And then on the equipment that you finally found and you ordered, or they find out the federal government takes your order away from you.
We've had that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. I get about 10 emails a day and everything. It's like, yeah. So I don't...
It is a daily evolving issue that we try to keep up with, and making the decisions through the Emergency Operations Center, which we believe is in the best interest, clearly going back to public health and public safety for the residents as well as those that are responding.
The next one is, per the letter we received, we were told one reasons we made this decision, and you just said, was we didn't want to risk getting patients infected and vice versa. What precautions are we taking then dealing with the general public? From what I've seen, officers aren't wearing personal protective gear when pulling people over. They're not wearing face masks. So when they respond to calls with domestics, they're not wearing anything. If we're truly concerned about spreading or having COVID-19 spread to our officers, why is there not a policy? Why is the medical call policy more strict than just a regular call? Especially considering when, like, take for example, you pull somebody over, you really have no idea what's in that car. You have no idea. And we are going right up to their window, and we can do that, but we don't want to go to somebody's house who's calling for help.
I can have the chief respond directly to those, but only from my level as far as management level. Each officer has been provided PPE equipment, and it's been their discretion when they're best and needed to use it. We've directed them in regards to wiping vehicles down, in between calls, in between shifts, and so there's been a number of things that we've operationally went over with those officers in regards to what they should be doing. We have also provided additional masks that are not like the N95s and so on that are available, and they can certainly use any of that. If they feel that that's their need, be based on the call, based on what they're doing, they have every right to use it, and we'll replace it the best we can based on the supplies that we can get. So it's really their discretion at that point.
Okay. And next thing per the letter, we were told we're going to respond to life and death. So can you define what life and death is? Because I think your definition is probably different than what a lot of other people are thinking. For example, we're not going to stroke calls or heart attack calls, and I'm pretty sure most people would consider that life or death.
That would not be an accurate statement in that the stroke calls would be considered life-threatening and heart attack calls would be. Now, Chief, if you want to respond to any of those, you may.
We are basic life-saving. We can't help it with a stroke. We have an automatic defibrillator. We have the AED. We can do CPR. We can apply pressure if there's bleeding. And that's the limit of our medical expertise. And so going to headache calls and not feeling good calls really is kind of contraindicated on what we can do. And so much of that, all we're doing is in introducing more contaminants into a situation, and we're not providing any service. There's nothing we can do for someone with a stroke.
But you still respond to those calls.
Right. And we also take into account Saturday night, had a call that came in, and it was nothing that we could do, but the ambulance called and wanted extra assist, but they said there was some respiratory problems. The officers on the scene wore N95s and gloves and went in and helped lift the person, and that was our contribution to that ambulance assist.
Well, I don't know where the communication breakdown is, but part of the reason that we're here is because I did request the logs from 911, and we are calling out on a lot of stroke calls, and we are calling off on heart attack calls, and we're calling off before the ambulance district even responds per radio chatter. So I get what you're saying, and it sounds good. I do. But we don't know how long that ambulance is going to be. And like you said, you can't do anything for a stroke person. Well, what if they go into convulsions? I'm sure our people are trained to handle that, and that's common to happen. You don't know how to put somebody on a side and depress their tongue, and we don't train that?
In March through April, I think we had approximately 107 ambulance assist calls, and we overrode and went to 39 of those 107 calls. So we are using our discretion to answer calls that we feel that we can be of any kind of a service and assistance without being detrimental to the situation.
Well, this kind of goes to how I got to this. It was the week before last, and I was listening. Some people have asked me about this. I mean, this isn't a big secret. I mean, for some people it seems to be, but people are hearing what's going on, and they've asked me. And so I was listening, and we had an 80-something-year-old person fell, and we didn't respond. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, this guy's scared, helpless, in the floor. He doesn't have anything medically wrong with him. I mean, anybody that's dealt with 911, they're asking those questions. You know, what's going on? Do you have medical, or are you throwing up, or are you whatever? And we didn't call, we just left it. And to me, I'm thinking, what does that have to do with COVID? Why can we not respond? To me, if my neighbor 2 doors down called and was like, hey, I fell, can you help me get up? Common decency, I would go help. But we just called off. Again, before the ambulance said anything. The ambulance could have been 15 minutes away for all you know. But we just automatically.
If going to have a hard time getting there, they would have asked for us to go. But a person 86 years old is kind of a class risk there. And secondly, really, with a lift assist, we're really not medically certified to lift someone up who's fallen, not knowing any kind of injury they may have incurred. So we're bringing, everything that we have been through that day, and we're taking it into someone's house that we really probably shouldn't be lifting them up without them being medically checked.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next question. Since we've made the decision not to respond to medical calls in the city of Mexico, but other agencies in the county and surrounding counties are still responding with the appropriate equipment and precautions, has the idea of asking them for help in this situation, to take over this situation, been discussed?
We are still answering medical calls. We're still going to medical calls, but we're only going to medical calls where we can be of assistance. There's a large percentage of the calls that we are called to that are, like I said, I've got a headache, I'm not feeling good, I've got an upset stomach. Nothing to do with the few medical skills that we have. And so that's why we're using the same discretion that we use every day by carrying a gun on our hip. We're transferring that same discretion to picking and choosing the calls that we can be of assistance to without being detrimental.
And I would, you talk about headaches and stuff like that, fine. I could probably agree with you, but, when I hear a stroke call come in and get called off, or I hear a heart attack call and call and go, other agencies aren't doing that. They're just not. Little Dixie's going. I know Little Dixie's going. I talked to their chief. They have protocol of how they're handling it, and it's different than it was before it started. Callaway Volunteers, talk to them, they're still going. Boone has EMS, fire, they're still going. Police officers are not. You would be correct in that. Thank you. But we're not a police-only force.
We are not EMS.
No.
We are police and fire.
But prior to this...
And as far as what their response codes are, what they're using, is their decision. But on our emergency operation calls every single day that we've had, there has not been one time that's been brought up by the Ambulance Association, by Little Dixie, by Public Health, anything brought up regarding to how we're responding to any one of these calls. And in fact, I've discussed it with most of them to the point of saying, what you're doing is spot on. So I have not seen that to be an issue yet.
You kind of answered what I said. Well, my next one was, how would you answer a citizen that asked why we didn't do that? And so I'm not even going to bother with that. But this all kind of goes to the bottom line, and I think it's been a discussion, and I think it probably needs to be a real discussion going forward. I understand completely the financial logic behind having a public safety department with no fire EMS. I get that. But I've come to find out after doing research, this isn't the first time we've made these choices. We did this in Ebola. I didn't know that, but after talking to people, I found out you guys went to less service. Is it time to have the discussion about separating the services out? Because we had Ebola, we've had MARS, we've had SARS, we have COVID, and we are not providing us a service because we say we're public safety. And I'm just going to tell you, most people don't look at you like you're fire and only fire and police. They don't. Pre this COVID thing, you guys were going to every single call we're talking about. That's just the truth. And so this stuff's not going to go away, I don't think. And so I think by not offering our citizens this service, you're hurting them and possibly you could possibly cost some of their lives. And like I said, I understand why we don't do it. But everybody around us does it. Every city our size around us does it. We're the only one in this area that still does this the way we do it. Whether you do it a volunteer EMS fire department, whether you contact Little Dixie, I know they've contacted us in the past about taking over these services. I think maybe it's time to have that conversation. I don't know how your feelings are on that, though. What are your feelings on that?
I would disagree with your assessment in regards to other departments, what they're doing and not doing. Because I've had that same discussion with them, and that's not what I'm hearing.
But they have it, fire EMS.
I understand Little Dixie's a fire and rescue, which is a little different. I do not know what their training standards are or what they've done, but that's not what our training standards are. And our medical response, first responders, has and will be Audrain Ambulance Association. And that's who, and we back them up. We aren't the first responders on this. We provide ambulance assistance, and that's what we've done for years.
And I think
now, if you wish to have us go into further services, then certainly that can be a discussion.
I guess what I'm looking at is when you go to Moberly, Fulton, Hannibal, Wentzville, who are all kind of comparable in size to us, they've split their services. And they currently are going to these calls as fire EMS. Police are not. In my discussions, police are not going unless they're requested for, could be a violent situation, whatever. But and these are the cities we always compare ourselves to. That's just, people just do that. And all I keep hearing is we don't have first responders. We're not really first responders. And
Well, let's be careful with that term, because first responders can be a lot of things. First responders are police that only do police. First responders are fire that just do fire.
Medical first responders.
Medical is the ambulance. First
Right.
responders can be joint communication. First responders can be the street department during a snow emergency. First responders can be all kinds of folks in all kinds of different emergencies.
Right. You're correct.
So they have grouped that term together following 9/11 in regards to, from a funding purposes, to put them all under one. But it's never meant to say that a first responder does every single thing across that board.
No, and you're correct, but what I'm saying is we don't have a medical first responders.
We
We
do.
do not do medical first responder calls. We just don't. Never have.
And that's the difference in our communities versus others, because they have fire/EMS, and EMS would be considered medical first responders.
But our ambulance district, if I'm hearing correctly, is our first responder. So we're working with and excuse me for saying first responder on this. So the way that we have our structure is saying, hey, if it's a medical emergency, ambulance district is going to go. If they need us, we're going to be right there to assist as needed. So to me, that means our community does have someone who's answering our medical calls. In a life-threatening situation, if we think we have to be the ones we can get there quicker, then from what I was hearing, then we will go because, hey, we're going to try to triage or do whatever we need to do until that medical group can get there. And so I think we have to look at it holistically and not just individually in how we're trying to set this out. I think what they're doing right now, as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to follow protocols that have been established by public health and safety for how we're dealing with this. You're right, this is unprecedented times, and so things are a little bit different. I haven't, and I usually get a lot of emails or inboxes, or it's amazing how people can find you if they want to ask questions. I have not heard I really haven't heard anything in regards to it as far as me, but again, I don't work like at a McDonald's and see people on a regular basis like that either. But the thing is, a lot of times if there's a really huge issue, I do hear from that. I think they're doing a great job. And I think we have to support what they're doing. I don't think we're trying not to give our citizens services.
Oh, this isn't about what they're doing per se. I know the officers are doing the best they can. This is about a policy that's been adopted. And to your fact, you say the Audrain Ambulance District. Every single one of those towns has an ambulance that's going to respond to. It's no different. If you go to Moberly and they have a medical call, EMS is going, and so is the ambulance. So, I mean, they have an additional layer on top of the ambulance. Everybody has an ambulance going.
Right.
There's nobody, so we're not special in the fact that we have an ambulance district.
Right.
Everybody has an ambulance. And what I'm saying is sometimes that ambulance takes longer. For my example, I can say I know probably... I give you an example of my work. It's right across the street from the ambulance district. I have plenty of calls. And a lot of times, they're there way before the ambulance is, and the ambulance is right across the street from me, literally.
Well,
you know.
yeah, and I
Well,
think we understand it.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I was listening to this, I was trying to decide exactly, but the way I'm hearing this, and I don't, I'm getting a little confused by listening to you, but what you're saying that the first responders, as far as our public safety people, should provide medical services? Is that what you're saying?
I would say prior to March 17th, they were.
No, I don't know that that's not
They
true,
were
because
responding
let me
to the
tell
call.
you my experience. My husband, who's 73, which I would consider a senior, he might not consider
I'll tell you.
Right.
took a horrible fall on the ice on the driveway. I was still sound asleep in bed. And somehow he made it back to the house. He shattered his arm. And he made it back. And true, the first person there was a public safety officer. Mm-hmm. And I was already on the phone with the 911 people. And he came in. He did nothing. They asked if he was there, and I said, yes, he's here. But all he did was he just talked to my husband, because they told me to keep him awake, make sure he stayed conscious. But nothing was done to him until the EMS people came. They worried about him having a head injury. He obviously had a badly broken arm. But, as far as, I thought what he did was very, very appropriate. And he was very nice, by the way. But he kept me calm, and he did what he could do, and he waited on the EMS people to come, and then they did put the splint in, and they took him on over to, because they were concerned. He did not have a head injury, but they were concerned about that. So I thought what he did, but when you're saying that people should, when you're talking about people falling, and you're right, if he'd been seriously injured and then the guy had come in and done something that he shouldn't have done, it could have been, it could have been a lot worse than it was. But I was very satisfied with that, very impressed, and so I just thought I'd add that as a comment.
I've had nothing but good issues with them ever. It's just simply we've changed the policy, and now we won't go to those calls. And I understand they're not medical people. I think people understand that. But they do have some medical training. We pay for it. I mean, it's in the budget. We pay for some medical. I mean, these guys aren't don't know anything. Yeah.
Don't you do basic bleeding?
Basic bleeding.
Yeah.
Basic life saving.
And the thing of it is, we have dialed back on several things that we do. And in the course of dialing back due to the COVID thing, a lot of things have changed about how we book prisoners and how long and who goes to jail and who doesn't go to jail, and things we write tickets for. So we've dialed back on a lot of things. This is just one of the things that we've done to try to protect people. And it's still at the discretion of the officers on duty about what they go to.
Can I speak?
Yeah, of course.
It kind of seems like, Chris, we've had this discussion whether we should be public safety, and I think you said there's only 3 public safety places in Missouri still left, or very few. And it's been a long kind of discussion whether, and I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I just think it's important for me to know that we have quality city manager and police chief and staff. I hope we're making the right decisions for the people of Mexico and the employees of Mexico, city of Mexico. And I feel that I'm, unlike Mr. Nichols here, who probably knows lots about this, I know nothing. And I feel I was elected to hire competent people to do the job. I don't think I was elected to tell them what their job is. I might, just like tonight, I told them I didn't think they had enough words in annexation, but I'm glad that you're doing the job you're doing. I'm not sure it's 100% right, but I'm certainly not sure it's 100% wrong. I'm just glad that we have the quality staff that we have, and they're doing the best they can in a tough situation. That's all and I'd be willing to talk anytime about public safety splitting. I'm not sure whether I'm for it or against it, but it has been something we've talked about.
Okay. Anyone else?
Got the floor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, your first responders are licensed first responders. They're basically bleeding and CPR. Then after that, you have EMT-Bs, EMT basic, then you get EMT-Ps for a paramedic. The paramedics at the top of the chain, the EMTs are second, the first responder are third down. Even if you're a licensed EMT, like I am, if I'm on the fire department, I'm a first responder. Because of our insurance, I can't go out of my first responder realm to do EMT. But as far as EMT is, if I don't do what I'm licensed and trained to do, I'm in violation of the law there too. So it's kind of a catch-22. But what your problem is, Chief, is your people have done too good for too long. And every time a truck ambulance goes, they're there. They're there to hold somebody's hand, and if Mike was bleeding, they'd stop the bleeding. If somebody's heart stopped, they're going to try to start the heart. Everything they can, they're going to try to fix the situation. and we've got used to that. And when it says, non-life threatening, I don't think the general public realizes that when people get a splinter finger, people go on ambush for that.
Thank you.
I hit my head a week ago and it just don't feel right. Or, my son went to the pool and got a sunburn today. It just doesn't look right. And, as long as I'm not saying words, people saying it, I'm okay. But there's a lot of non-life-threatening calls out there. But you all have always done a good job. So, and with the PPE equipment being scarce the way it was, we were going to have to cut back some too, and we finally got some equipment. So Little Dixie is still responding, and I was realistic. I'm not trying to step on your toes here, but we have guidelines that we never have. We always use, gloves and stuff like that, but now we're way further than that. So we're still going to all calls, but you guys are in the town, and we're in the county. And if they have a call clear up by Monroe County, you may take 15 minutes to get up there, and we got a guy 2 minutes away. So that's the way it's set up. So we still go on all calls. Anyway, you have the floor back.
I was just making sure. Did you get all your questions answered?
My problem wasn't with headaches because I know those calls.
Yeah.
They do. But not as a councilman, just as a citizen, when I hear calls like a stroke victim, I understand maybe you can't do a lot. Maybe you can. If they had a heart attack and they stop, their heart starts beating, you can do CPR. You say you can do that. Those kind of calls don't sound very well when you say, we're not going to go. Especially when the calls come in and we say we're not going before the ambulance district even says hello. We don't know if they're 10 minutes away. We don't know if they're 5 minutes away. We don't know nothing.
But we know that if they really need us, they're going to call us, and I think that's what we have to. And they'll dispatch. So we have to. Like you said, we have to understand that there are procedures in place to prevent somebody waiting for an hour for somebody to show up. And they're not going to, they'll let them know that they need to get there if they really can or they think they can. So we just have to trust the system sometimes. Thank you for bringing up your concerns. And can we ready to move forward with the claims?
Move approved.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
Shivers,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
All right. Comments from the council. Ms. Briggs?
Every time.
Just easier when we go right to left. I'm sorry.
I really have nothing.
I'll just say, just for the record, this is just about policy. It's not about our officers. I think they're out there. They're doing a good job. I've never had any problems with any of them. It's just about what we've decided. And I think, just for the record, I will probably bring this about the discussion and put it up for a public meeting or something at some point later, because I do think it's something that needs to be discussed. Moving on from that, Russell, have you, by chance, talked to Teva lately?
Andy Fate, the manager of the operation, he and I speak weekly.
Has the idea, so some people I know at the state level, when we've been talking, is with everything going on with COVID, it's come to my attention that they are like one of the last places that make antibiotics in the country here. And it seems with all the talk about, we don't want our stuff made overseas, has there been any discussion on your end or, to move up the political chain and say, hey, what can we do to maybe not have this move? I know they're set on it, but there's always things you can sweeten the pot with to get stuff to stop.
Really, it comes down to just dollars and cents. I've had lots of people contact me about that. I guess it's a big thing with Josh Hawley, wanting to try to keep some drugs made locally. The only thing that we manufacture here is the current product. All the raw ingredients come from China. So they also manufacture the same product over there at a considerably cheaper cost. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. The plant can only be used for that product because it is contaminated with that product.
Right.
So we couldn't use it for something else, and I think the corporate mind's made up. Yeah, it could change, but we stay in contact. There is a change. I know that their contract was extended out a little longer to manufacture product, so which was good. But I have heard nothing different, and not flying to Israel anytime soon.
I didn't expect you to. I just, with everything going on, and then, you hear this outcry of, one of the things I think that I've seen through this whole experience is the masks, the medical equipment, all of it's been, we've realized we've outsourced all of this stuff, and it's hard to get, and like Steve was mentioning, some of the equipment we are getting from overseas is not the greatest equipment, and so I thought about this plant. I'm like, it's not actually torn down yet. So, maybe some way in the state level or even higher could, it is dollars and cents. So maybe there's some dollars somewhere. I just didn't know if you'd had any of those conversations or not. Okay.
I would add to that in that I did speak with Andy, I want to say last Thursday night. And as you know, they were originally projected to close really kind of at the end of last year. And then they got orders that they were able to do that extended it to March. And now they've had orders that have extended it to July. In discussing it with him Thursday night, they have additional orders that could extend further, but they cannot get the base product that they've, in essence, the ingredients, the materials, and I don't understand what they do, but that he has said basically the materials that they used to produce, they no longer produce. They have to get them from China, and they cannot get them. And as a company that is not owned by anyone left in the United States, and he says, by the way, we are the only plant left in the United States that makes their product. But
I thought that was true. I missed my words. I was like, one of the last, but I thought it was the last.
Is not owned by an American company. Basically, made in America doesn't mean anything to them.
Right. I just thought dollars and cents because I think there might be some dollars that maybe you could get free on some level. We can't do that, but I know you guys have contacts that go higher up the chain. And with all the talk, it just came to my mind. I was like, well, maybe, not just for saving jobs in our community, but I was thinking, God, for the country. I mean, this place is the only place left around here. So, like, what if something does happen and their product happens to be a cure or whatever, and it's gone. So, but I'm glad you guys have had those conversations. That's it.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Well, with all this discussion tonight, I am so happy that we're not New York.
Yes, Lord.
And we still have one confirmed case, and he's already went past the 2-week time period, so that's good. And I think my praying for Mexico every day may have some benefits. So anybody else want to pray for Mexico, pray for it yourself.
I have been.
I would add that as I understood from the emergency operations call today, is that individual has went from what they've called into the recovery stage, so it's no longer considered an active case.
Yeah, after 2 weeks,
That's just all part of living in the heart of America. We just don't have that kind of stuff here.
We got golf carts.
There we go. Well, I guess I was happy to hear the governor's making some steps into bringing business back online, and being a business person and suffering greatly by what's going on. I'm pretty excited about the fact that manufacturing opens up next Monday greater than it is, and most businesses too, to an extent. So, we can hide all we want, but if you kill the economy, when you come back, there may not be anything. It'll take a long time to come back. And I'm happy that you brought up the questions you did, Chris. And again, I'm very happy that we have very competent people on staff here. And I'm counting on them making the right decisions because I don't know the decision. You all are our paid people to make those decisions. Glad to have you on board.
Mr. Slagle?
As part of what you've said in regards to trying to reopen or restart the economy, or whatever we're calling it, reopen the country, I guess, we do have a copy of the federal plan, the CDC guidelines, and obviously it's a three-phase plan. It does leave a lot of decisions and discretion back to state and local governments. Just prior to this meeting, I was in a meeting with the presiding commissioner and discussing a number of other things, but as a part of that, the governor released his initial plans and so on today. I will be on a conference call tomorrow with the governor's office, reference that plan and how this is going to lay out. But in general, we have, meaning as staff, been working on our reopen plans and trying to identify those phases and when things will come back online. Most of the planning stages of it, certainly from our point of view at this point, is going to start May 4. There are steps within that plan that basically refer to the science and back to the issues about when you should open certain things based on number of cases and declining and basically impact and risk and so on. However, there's been a certain amount of pressure that says you got to have certain things for 14 days that we talked about, and then if that happens, then you can move to the next phase, and you got to keep that for a minimum of 14 days, and then the next phase, and so on. But predominantly what we're hearing to a great extent is that I'm not sure that some of the reopening plans that they're pushing is really going to pay much attention to the science. It's pretty much going to be 14 days, 14 days, 14 days, and most everybody is moving towards the idea that come June 1, pretty much we're going to be back. I have some concerns with that, and I don't know that we may move as fast as that. I certainly want to continue to watch the data, and that is the same discussions that we've had in our emergency operations meetings, and we will continue to make those decisions. But anyway, as the phase one, we're looking at a lot of low-risk, low-impact kinds of things for reopening, and just so that you have some kind of an idea of what we're talking as far as city operations go, would be tennis courts, pickleball courts, disc golf courts, horseshoe courts, campground back for Mexico residents only. Then when we get into phase two is where we'll be talking about bathrooms and opening up shelter reservations again and softball fields and skate park. Phase three then gets back into the higher impact, higher exposure areas, which is the playgrounds, basketball courts, opening up the campground for folks outside of Mexico, Audrain County, and then opening up shelters without limits. Exact dates or times that those are going to happen, we're going to still continue to base that on what the federal plan, the state plan, and back to cases that we have as we move forward. There are some things that will not change as we come back out. And one of those very well be is like some of our facilities reference the maintenance center and so on. We are moving forward to put in a automated gate so that it's just not left open. Over the years, we've had a lot of people come and go, in and out when they shouldn't be, and theft and different things. And this way, by putting in an automated gate type system with a punch code, that will hopefully help eliminate some of those things. The other item is the pool that's hanging out there. And most of the discussions that have been statewide in regards to what do you do with pools because of the high contact area and so on, it doesn't just have to do with social distancing. It has to do with, the community locker room type restrooms and those kinds of things. What we're hearing in general, and Chad, you can add to this as well, is that the pools that are considered public but that have more of a membership to, they're limiting the membership to those, and most of those are going to try to open around June 1. So they're not going to open as early as they normally would. The ones that are considered far more public pools, which is daily admissions more like we are, they're really saying that's probably going to be more of a July 1 opening. Well, as you know, we were moving forward regardless of, we were going to be building something, and we were going to be closing our pool anyway, mid-July to begin that construction. So we're really looking at this numbers right now and saying it makes absolutely no sense to open our pool on July 4th or 5th like the rest of them are doing and close it 10 days later when it costs you, $35,000 plus just to get it operational. It makes no sense for 10 days. So just initially setting the general stage that we probably won't see a pool this year just because of a lot of things. Now, Chad, have you got anything you want to add to that?
So a lot of the newer facilities in exurban and suburban areas don't have pass-through locker rooms like.
Hey, Chad, would you mind if I can see you?
I'm sorry. Is that better?
That's better.
A lot of the suburban facilities, especially the newer ones, do not have pass-through locker rooms like what we have. And they don't have that central gathering foyer where everybody has to come through that same spot. They tend to have wide-open breezeways that people come through, and they have memberships. And a lot of them, as we are planning on when we build, have like a fob that they can just go through a turnstile or, something of that nature. So you don't have that interaction with every person that comes in, and they're different kinds of pools, as you all know. They're not just a body of water. There are all kinds of spray features and different smaller bodies of water and things. So one of the advantages they have is that if you have to say this as delicately as I can, if you have to have everybody get out of the water because of an accident, you might only be getting 15% of the people in the facility out of the water. So if you need to still maintain social distancing and have room for those people to go somewhere, it's much easier for them than if we have to get 200 people out of the pool. Where do you put them? Because according to and actually I've already read the governor's release today and marked it up, we're still supposed to have people maintain that 6-foot distance. So if I have everybody out, where do I put them? So we've got, in addition to what Bruce is saying, because of the kind of older, dated facility that we have additional problems with trying to actively follow the guidelines that have been dropped down. And those are through the end of May into June. So it looks highly unlikely at this point in time that we'll actually be able to fire the pool up and run it this year.
Okay.
We have days when we have 200 swimmers.
Right. So one of the things in the governor's order is that schools are closed for the rest of the year, but they are allowed to have summer school. So if we were to have our summer school, we have more than, I think, 120 come in during summer school. So during summer school, during this time period that we were talking about possibly being open, we can have 200 people. And that's why we had considered opening for that time period of, the last of May through the July 5th, was because that is when we have the majority of our people in the pool. And a lot of that, a lot of those entries are via the summer school program. So also on that same note, if they don't have summer school and we don't have that summer school program, you could be spending a whole lot of money to open pool for a very small crowd.
So summer school is back on?
No. Okay. I'm saying the governor's order allows schools to have summer school. We don't have any idea what the school district's going to do, and I doubt they do either because it just came out today. So...
Well, the other thing we might see is another spike in that virus.
Correct. So. In which case, we'd spend the money getting ready to go and then have to shut it right back down. Correct.
And that's part of the science that I'm talking about as we do this. As we move through these, if we see a spike, that will certainly slow down when we move to that next phase, or if we move to the next phase, or if we go backwards.
So the Park and Rec Association has a database where everybody has been putting in what their decisions are on the pools, and actually I reviewed it today to get ready for this meeting, and it's pretty well split. You tend to see, again, the suburban areas that have new facilities and have memberships, they're going to try to open, but most of them are going to open June 1st or July 1st. So
I'm just going to say that I'm thankful we're having this conversation, and I'm thankful to hear that we're not just going to willy-nilly 14 day, because that some of these communities that I've been just like, that's scary. I mean, because of science. I mean, you got to believe in the science a little bit. I mean, if you get sick, you go to the doctor and need prescribed antibiotics. I bet they take them, But for some reason, now science is like, well, yeah, it's a suggestion. No. So I'm thankful. Thank for saying that. Makes me feel a lot better being in our community that we're gonna not just willy-nilly do it. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, all I can say is I'm like Chris here. I was very grateful that we've only had the one in Audrain County. Just a reminder to everyone as we reopen, though, to still practice social distancing, to continue to practice good hygiene and washing your hands, and if you're so led, wearing your mask and doing those things that we've been doing to keep it that way. I don't want everybody to get too excited and just run out there, even though I do want them to support all of our local businesses as much as they can, so we can keep our economy going as well. So I don't have anything else to say.
We adjourn.
Second.
You did not ask for public comments.
We don't have no public.
Go ahead, cover it.
Oh.
We go into Facebook Live.
Weeks in a row.
Sorry. Who made the motion? Did you? And who seconded?
I did.
I thought I did, but
Miller?
I think we said at the same time.
Nichols?
yes.
Thank you. Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
You have the radio in the morning, and I think he probably going to talk